Hi, I'm Wendy Solomon with Wendy Jade Photography, and I do mainly two types of photography: weddings and business branding. So, two completely different niches. My photographs, what I love to do is have full color, beautiful photos with kind of an unposed look. I like that editorial look and real moments in my photography. So I'm going to talk today about brain health and three ways to use photography in health, keeping healthy brains, especially for those people that have brain disorders. So I'm going to start a screen share here. So hopefully this will work. Let's see. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Oh, yay. It worked. Let's see. And so here we go. Let me make sure we're going. I don't know how to get that side panel gone there.
Go to slideshow. Do you see it right there between record and animations? The very top. It's the white letters on a, see where it says slideshow?
No, it's not. Let me see. I'm maybe in a wrong screen here. Well, I think
I'm watching your mouse go up and then to the left. It should be in like
I think I might have a.
I think your photo format, I think you have to be in a different
Yeah.
I think you have to be in home or something, or
I don't know. I think she needs to click on slideshow, but try home.
She might not see it on her side.
Yeah, I can't see it because I think the other thing is covering
right there.
up.
You were
Yeah,
right.
she was right at it almost.
The top bar. Yeah. That's the top. It's the bar. It's the bar.
And see,
go slightly to the right from where you are.
Go to the right. Go to the right. One
the
over.
thing is covering it up. It won't let me select it. Let's just. So you're going to have to just see the other slides, I think, in order to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. But for brain health, I didn't really understand the importance of brain health until my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's and eventually also with dementia. At the beginning of all of that, I didn't understand the effects that Parkinson's was going to have on her life and on our whole family's lives. I knew that Parkinson's caused tremors, but that was really all I knew about it. And I had no idea that it also reduced the cognitive functioning of a person. She was diagnosed in 2000, and then she passed in 2020. So she lived with a steadily decreasing brain function and memory for about 20 years. The disease really took its toll on her, especially as, those diseases just kind of slowly stripped away everything from her. It stripped away her ability to walk and her ability to communicate and even just to remember the previous day. She really slowly lost everything in her life. So first it was the little things, like she no longer had the fine motor skills to write out a check or things like that. So my dad had to take over some of that, those functions. She then started having trouble walking and talking. She couldn't come up with words and she couldn't string a sentence together. So it could take her 10 minutes to form a sentence. And obviously this made it impossible for her to participate in the conversations around her. And since her brain couldn't communicate with her body any longer, she would try to walk, but her feet just couldn't move. Her brain was trying to send the signal, but her feet didn't know what to do. So, and then it began to take away her relationships as she started to forget her friends and her family and all of those of us that were close to her. She eventually started hallucinating and she had less and less moments of lucidity, and she gradually lost her ability to perform her, activities of daily living. So it was definitely a really awful thing for her, losing her life like that in increments and knowing it was happening. Because when she still was lucid, we had conversations about it and it really bothered her. She didn't like the fact that she could see the looks on people's faces and she felt like people were pitying her and she didn't like that. But it was also awful for those of us that loved her and to watch her gradually shrinking in her mind and her body with just nothing that we could do about it. to see her becoming a shell of her former self and to lose her really before she was gone. But having someone with this type of issues really emphasizes the importance of family and the importance of the quality of time that we spend with them. My mom at that time lived 1,800 miles away from me. So every time I visited, I tried to pack those months worth of memories into each time. I tried to think of ways to create connection and help, continue that bond and form new memories with her each time. So as a photographer, I'm used to taking my camera everywhere, but I discovered that the camera and photography was really a particularly effective tool for those people with impaired brain function. And to me, photography can help those, people with brain impairments in three different ways. It can help them keep the brain active. It can help create those new moments with that person, and it can really help them, retain their dignity. So there's a lot of research that shows that certain types of activities can be very beneficial for the brain, for the brain's health. Reviewing photographs is one of those that experts pretty much agree is a great way to help them assist in recall. So when a person experiencing dementia or other brain disorders sees a photograph of themselves or a loved one, it can inspire conversations about the people and the places and the background in the context of that photo. One time, my whole family was sitting around the table talking and looking at magazines, and my sister saw a photo of an airplane and she said, "Wow, that reminds me of a scene in that movie, Catch Me If You Can." And my dad said, "Who was that guy?" And my sister said, "Leonardo DiCaprio." And he said, "No, not the actor. What's the name of the actual guy?" And my mom piped up and said, "Frank Abagnale." And we were all kind of amazed because she'd not been lucid very much that day. And my dad said, "I can't believe she was able to remember that." And my mom said, "Well, I met him once." And we kind of laughed, but in fact, she had met him some 20 years prior to that. But for some reason in that moment, that photograph triggered that memory for her. And she recalled that. But for the next maybe 20 minutes, it was like she was completely lucid. She started talking to us. We had this really nice conversation until she eventually kind of closed back down and got locked inside that brain again. But so a snapshot really can trigger recall like that far more effectively than words can. There's Alzheimer's research is some of the researchers suggest that we do just that, show photographs, ask them some open-ended questions, give them some time to respond. I discovered when I was on one of my visits to my family, there's an Alzheimer's store. It's alzstore.com. And it has a lot of products that you can get for people with dementia and Alzheimer's. So they have picture books and activity books and puzzle books and things like that that help the brain. So I had bought one of those for my mom, and it had a photo on each page, just one simple photo on a page, and then questions and activities. So for instance, it would have a picture of cookies in a jar, and then it would have suggestions of questions like, did you ever bake cookies with your children? Do you have a favorite holiday cookie? Did you keep your cookies in a cookie jar? Things like that, and letting them respond to whatever memories that brings up. And that was a very special thing that I could do with my mom. It also had activities, suggested activities. So it might say, bake some cookies together from scratch, or visit a local bakery together, or look at magazines and cut out pictures of cookies and make a collage, or, so it had various things. So each page had, hours and hours worth of potential things that you could do with that person. And it was very effective. And my mom, it was something she could still do even at a fairly advanced stage of her illness. But I also learned from that, for someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, the importance of asking those open-ended questions and not something specific that has a right answer, but something open-ended that they can grasp. And so like I would ask her, what do those cookies remind you of? Or, things like that, instead of asking her something that had a specific answer. And also the importance of patience with someone like that, because sometimes I knew that I needed to wait until she could come up with the words, because she knew what she was trying to say, but sometimes she just couldn't get it out. So sometimes I'd ask her a question and I'd wait so long, I would think that maybe she fell asleep. But in fact, then she would finally come up with an answer. And if I pushed her too fast, she'd really get upset, because I know it's got to be very frustrating that, for her mind was slowing down, and she could get there. She just couldn't do it in the same timetable that all the rest of us could. So another way that those activities help is, depending on their abilities, this could be a new hobby for them. Because in the early days, with my mom's illness, organizing and labeling photos into albums became something that she really enjoyed doing. When my mom was maybe 10 years into her illness, at that point, she was just starting to take a really long time to do certain things. So like, it would take her forever to get out of the car, or it would take her forever to peel a potato. She knew how to do it, but her brain wasn't processing it fast enough for her to get there quickly anymore. But she was still able to communicate fairly well. And she asked me to come and visit and help her put photos into all her albums. And she'd always loved photos, taking photos and, looking at her photos. So, but when I agreed to help her, I kind of had no idea what I was getting myself into. She had a bunch of albums already. And that's a picture on the left of her with some of the photos she pulled out. She was pulling photos out of everywhere. She had bags full of photos and boxes full of photos. And I had planned my visit to help her with that. I had planned a week. We spent the better part of that whole week doing this project. So we first sorted these photos into the appropriate decades, and then started trying to put them roughly in chronological order. We had to go buy a bunch more photo albums to put them in. And so after that week, I felt like we hadn't even made a dent in the project. That's how many photos she had. But I didn't realize it then, but in hindsight, it was very fortuitous timing that this project happened, because along the way, when we were putting them in these albums, I was asking her questions about who the people and the events and the locations were in these photos. And she had a pretty good memory still at that point. And so she was telling me all of these details, and I had decided to label everything in the albums. So this project was not only great bonding time for us, we giggled about some of our fashion choices over the years. We reminisced about trips we took. And that project was a good stimulation for her mind and became kind of a little mini hobby for her for a while. And it was preservation of those memories for her too. But like I say, we didn't know it then, but in just a few short years, she didn't remember any of that anymore. So I was really glad we had taken the time to label everything, because that gave her the ability to look back and remember those people and those places that she no longer could. It was also a very significant thing for my dad, because he had never really taken much interest in all the photos over the years. But at that point, he was able to look at these photos in a whole different way, as kind of a way to remember my mom and think about some of those events and those things that were important to her. There is a French artist named Laurence Agater. I'm probably mispronouncing her name, but she was still is an artist who she became very interested in the subject of dementia, and she designed a project where she was showing photos to people with dementia. And her whole goal was to make life better for people that were suffering brain disorders. The very first person she visited that had dementia, he was pretty far along into his illness. And he was having trouble articulating pretty much anything or forming sentences to explain his thoughts. And one of the photos she showed him was a picture of a cat and her kittens. And sort of like my mom, when she was thinking about that actor, this man became very animated, very coherent, started sharing his thoughts freely for several minutes. And she said it was like he didn't have the disease at all anymore. So from her research, she really believed that this could help people. And so she's created a book called Photographic Treatment, where she uses these pairs of photos, like the pair on the right. She pairs black and white simple images that together in interesting ways. And just as a starting point for people to use in sharing thoughts and ideas and getting people to, connect with something and kind of break out of their shells. She along the way made some interesting discoveries too. And one of the things, and this is probably not that surprising, but people with dementia they had a hard time differentiating the subject from the background if it was very busy. So she would take photos that were very simple, where the subject was close to the camera and that the background was blurry, so that the subject was very obvious. She also discovered that these people liked the photos better if they were more natural, with natural smiles, more than overly edited photos. And so she said it was like they had a sixth sense for authenticity, and that they're really good at reading facial expression, body language, tone of voice, that kind of thing. And she was theorizing that it was probably because we learn those things before we learn language skills. So that is something more innate to us. Something a little bit sad, it's estimated that up to half of people over 85 might have dementia. And according to the Alzheimer's Association, over 40% of people with dementia suffer extreme depression. So a lot of the time, this is exacerbated by family members or caregivers who don't really adequately understand how to relate with somebody with these conditions. And so they unintentionally infantilize these people, and that just increases the isolation and the sadness that these people experience. So for instance, when they ask someone, they're trying to make conversation, and they ask these people about recent events, like, what did you have for lunch yesterday? Or, what did you think about that movie we watched last night? It kind of sets those people up for failure, because their short-term memory isn't reliable. So they know there's supposed to be an answer, but they get stressed out trying to think of what it is. So there again, the open-ended questions are much better for them. So using photos is a very effective tool for these people, because with a photo, both people, the person with the brain disorder and the caregiver, can be looking at that photo together. And again, by using open-ended questions, it can really help get them engaged, and it helps them retain their focus, which is a very difficult thing for people with dementia or other brain disorders. It helps to stimulate their mind and helps those neurons maintain their health. So it's not just the existing photos and all those, photo memories and those events that we've already experienced, but creating new moments for them can also be very beneficial for somebody with a brain disorder. It can be a really wonderful tool. It's a time that you can bond together with the family members. And, often with caregivers or family members, there may be, maybe you're the photographer in the family, and so you are never in those photos. So we're not always all together. And you may not think that's super important, but the other family members miss having you in those photos. When they're looking for those photos of you across the years, you're not there. A friend of mine that's a photographer recently told me she did a photo shoot with this family recently, with the elderly grandmother included in this shoot. Less than a week later, the grandmother had a heart attack and passed away. And that family expressed to her how grateful that they were that they did this photo shoot and that they had that last photo together, and that they, got to commemorate that time that they spent with her. So in my mom's case, as her illness progressed, she got more and more isolated because of her diminished cognitive functioning. And my dad and other family members were around, of course, but she couldn't articulate her thoughts so quickly. So, like I say, she felt left behind. So people would talk about where they were going to go to lunch and then segue onto a different topic. 10 minutes later, she's finally able to add a sentence, and people are kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about, because, we already solved that. So it was very frustrating to her. But when we did photo shoots, it transcended it transcended the spoken word, and we were able to just be, and we would do different scenarios and let her play. Like one time we got out a bunch of hats and scarves and wigs, and we just had fun with them. And she really hadn't been lucid that morning much at all. But once we started playing with all this, she got very animated and contributed several ideas. And at one point she said, oh, I think I have an idea. And we said, what's that? And she said, we could take these scarves and put them down our shirts to make it look like we have big chests. And we just started laughing, because our mom had always been a little bit naughty like that, and so it was just so much her personality coming out. And we knew that in that moment, she was really there with us, and that she was all present for that time that we were spent doing the photos. And she was with us for quite some time in that afternoon after that. Another time, as we were doing a sequence of photos, I said, what should we do next? And she said, you could photograph me playing the piano. And I thought it was so funny, because she had never played the piano. So I don't know where she came up with that, but I was just glad to see her able to connect the dots and to connect an activity like that, and to see her playful side come out. Whenever we would do photos, she also asked me usually to do her hair and makeup ahead of time. And so I knew that not only was this a connection for us, a time for us to do some serious bonding, but this clearly meant something to her, and she wanted to have some control over how she was presenting herself. So I really enjoyed that. Another tool that was very effective is, one time I got her one of those photo frames with the photos that go to the next frame one by one. She really enjoyed that. And it came at a time where she was not always very lucid, but still ambulatory. And this frame was great, because she would sit and watch it and remember these photos and the people in them, and the people that were, and the people and events that were in them. Really, she retained that far more than any other things going on in her life at that point. And then the last, but definitely not least, these moments I spent with my mom are like treasures for me now. And, when she was becoming trapped in that prison of her mind, I hope that the photo shoots and the time that we spent together helped give her a glimmer of happiness. When people have a brain disorder of any kind, they're often fully capable of understanding other people, even when they're unable to communicate effectively. So like I say, sometimes people unintentionally, they're dismissive of them. The people are treated as irrelevant. They're talked down to. And so even well-meaning family members who just don't understand the nature of these disabilities can, inadvertently treat them this way. And also their bodies are, as they age, are being ravaged by that. They're losing themselves. They're losing their hearing, their eyesight, their muscle tone, and now their minds. And so physically and mentally, they just don't feel like themselves. My mom had also taken on the features of her illness and had what they call the flat affect, which is the absence of expression. So when my sister saw some of the photos I was taking of her, she said, this is the first time in a long time Mom doesn't look disabled. And she said, you gave her dignity back. And that really resonated with me. And so my goal when I'm doing photo shoots, especially with any kind of senior citizens, but especially people with brain disorders, my goal is to get them as engaged as they're capable of being, and shoot from angles that de-emphasize things like wheelchairs or the blank expressions that they sometimes have. So a photo shoot can be a win like a win-win strategy that, helps strengthen that relationship with the person while it helps them with their short-term memory, and then also giving you that photographic memory of that event in that time. So often the caregiver, they're overwhelmed with all of these things physically and mentally. So the last thing you're thinking about is taking a photo. But whether you have anybody in the family with memory issues or not, you never know when it's going to be too late. And so I hear from people all the time how they're grateful that they did carve out that time to get their family members together and create the photo memories together. And these photos are the ones that will put the smiles on our face and help us cope when those people are no longer around. And so that's why I'm so passionate about helping families keep hold of these memories, because I come to this topic of brain health not so much from the scientific perspective, but from an intensely personal one. And that's why I have a special offer for you today. A 1-hour photo shoot with me is normally $180, but because you're here today, I'm offering it for only $119. And so to get this, you can call me, email me, or I'll put a link in the chat where you can schedule online. And this shoot can be with any number of people you want at any location you choose. It could be at a park, it could be at your home, it could be at a nursing home. And I can help you brainstorm locations. And then you'll receive a gallery full of fully edited electronic images within a week or so after your shoot. And if you need to verify a date first, you can buy this deal as a gift certificate and then figure out a date later. It's that easy. But the deal is only available for 2 days, today and tomorrow. But here's what I know. You might be thinking now, yes, I need to get the family together for photos. It's just been forever. But then you leave this day to here today and life takes over and you don't get to it. Another month goes by, a week goes by, a month, and then it's a year that's passed. But this moment in time will never come back again. So if you don't carve out some time, the kids grow and change, family members are not with us anymore, and then we don't have any photos of that particular age and time. And I hear you say, but I don't, but I don't know my family's schedule. But that's why I said you can get it as a gift certificate and sort the details later. But my family lives far away. Maybe you have to schedule months in advance to get everybody in, or maybe you have to do 2 different shoots. So it might take some logistics, but it can be done because your family is such a priority. But I don't have the extra money. Let's face it, none of us ever have extra money. But if we want to create and preserve memories, we have to figure out a way to get this done now. And I've done part of that by reducing the price for you. So maybe you can get other family members to participate with you and help defray some costs and do a shoot together. So don't let the buts get in the way. Your family is so precious, and none of us know how much time we have together. I'm so grateful for all those photos I have of my mom, and they're like gifts to me now. And I want you to have the gift of your family memories too. Thank you all so much.
Wendy, you forgot to mention how you're doing something on June 21st.
Oh, that's true. Thank you so much. I am doing a webinar with 3 other participants. There's 4 of us in a panel. That is going to be June 21st from 7 to 8 p.m. And it's the topic is brain health, 4 perspectives on keeping your brain healthy. And I'll actually put that in the chat too. So I hope you all can join us. It's free. And if you register, even if you can't attend, it will be recorded. So you're able to get the recording later. And it's with me and 3 health coaches.
Yeah, Pooja, Marty, and Robin.
And Robin. Mm-hmm.
All of them wonderful, wonderful ladies.
Yes.
Okay.